The most important character in Medaka Box is of course the namesake of the series, Madaka. She is a very meta representation of the ideal protagonist, strong, talented, one who always wins and inspires others through her strength of heart. However, there is more than one type of protagonist. Take the dark hero, the anti-hero for example. This is another form of a protagonist, one deconstructed through Surabame. But the archetype we are more interested in today is the underdog, the normal guy who through perseverance and the power of friendship rises to the occasion to become strong and save the day, and Zenkichi is a deconstruction of this very role. If you find yourself entertained at any point during the video, then consider liking, subscribing and ringing that bell, as I cannot explain to you how much just a small action can do for this channel, and if you want to go the extra mile to support this channel even further, then consider pledging to my Patreon. Anyway, on with the video. Zenkichi is a normal, which weirdly makes him quite abnormal when compared to the rest of the main cast, be them abnormal, special, a not equal or a minus. Most of the cast have a mentality that deviates from the usual, with the exception of Zenkichi, and that's what makes him so interesting, as he challenges the idea of what it means to be normal. He challenges the very idea that abnormals and minuses are all that different from him. At the start of the series, his most defining trait is his loyalty to Madaka. Sure, he loves her, and sure they were childhood friends, but the devotion he has to her is just too much. And why is this? Because his view of her is wrong. Even he, her best friend, was overtaken by her immense protagonist aura, and so started to see her the same way as everybody else, as a superior being. As he says, Madaka is always more right. He genuinely believes that she is a god-chosen protagonist, and this is the very reason why he fails to stand by her side. He doesn't feel worthy to stand by her side as he's just a normal. And this is the issue that he has to overcome, something he does in the election arc where he stands opposed to her and then beats her, crushing the image of a protagonist and revealing the truth that she is just a normal girl. Though before we delve into all that, let's first turn to his greatest strength, which is subtly hinted at all throughout the series, and that is his empathy, his ability to understand others and to see them as people. In the 13-party arc we see Zenkichi fight Munakata. The normal fights an abnormal, but despite how it may appear on the surface, this is not a fight of brute force, but of the hearts. As Zenkichi does not win by beating Munakata, he wins by becoming his friend. As being a normal gives Zenkichi a unique viewpoint. He doesn't know what it's like to stand above others, nor to stand below them. He's neutral and so can view others neutrally as well. He doesn't see Munakata as an abnormal with an abnormality that lets him kill efficiently. He instead sees a troubled guy who pushes others away because he's scared of hurting them. Zenkichi, by asking to be his friend, shows that he understands his pain and wants to help him. Getting close to Munakata might mean ending up dead, but to Zenkichi is worth the risk. This is what wins the fight, and that's how Zenkichi continues to win throughout the series, by empathizing with his enemies and seeing the human beyond the abnormality or the minus. Take his fight with Madaka later in the arc. He doesn't knock her out of her mind control, no, he appeals to her heart with his own. The fact he even fights Madaka seems ludicrous on paper. He is normal and she is an abnormal, hence his chances of winning are zero. Yet that's just a perspective, and since Zenkichi doesn't choose to see people as different from him, he has no problem fighting them as equals, as if someone is hurting his friends or someone needs saving, he will step in no matter who stands in his way. And by the same merits, he won't let his opinion of someone be swayed just by the fact they are an abnormal. Also, he would like to think. The ending of his fight with Kumigawa is especially of note here. If he agreed to be friends, then Kumigawa would have possibly given him his eyesight back, but instead he defiantly says that they will never be friends, as he can't bear to see such a person as a friend. Even for him, someone like Kumigawa is too much, and so he gives up his one chance to see again, which is quite metaphorical, as well as Zenkichi doesn't even need them. He looks beyond the surface level of a person, he looks what's beyond the surface, he doesn't just look with his eyes. And since this is a battle shonen, so he kinda needs to still see, this is where parasite seeing comes in. This skill at first seems like an odd pick for Zenkichi, but on further inspection no power suits him better, as it's a skill that lets you see through the eyes of others, it lets you see from their point of view and by extension understand them. Before he saw more than just what someone outwardly revealed, but now he can see even deeper. Zenkichi hates Kumigawa, but with this skill he can see the truth. The minuses are still people and so they deserve to be treated the same as everyone else. Thanks to this skill he extends not his battle prowess but his empathy to the next level. He takes this lesson and uses it to help MK, as empathizing with and helping others is what he does best. Instead of seeing her as another minus, as someone like Kumigawa, he instead endeavours to help her in the same way he had done for Munakata, as even a minus is a person. Through meeting and fighting all these kinds of people, Zenkichi comes to discover the humanity, the person inside of everyone. Even the most vile of minuses is just human, so that only stands to reason that even a superhuman goddess is one too. It took befriending an abnormal and then helping a minus, but his empathy and his understanding of others finally reached a level where it could challenge a goddess. By declaring that he will beat Madaka, we see our underdog protagonist finally step away from her shadow. But the important thing is that he doesn't do this out of anger or jealousy, but out of love. As Zenkichi understands Madaka better than anyone in this series, even better than she knows herself. At first he saw her for what she was, a girl who was talented, and gave her a purpose to make her happy, but by doing so set her down the path to a simulated reality. He for a time was absorbed into this simulated reality as well. He called her a protagonist and a goddess, but that's not right. And so in the same way a normal protagonist would grow stronger throughout the story in order to battle the big bad, Zenkichi leveled up his empathy and his understanding of others, till he could break free of Madaka's fantasy and challenge her. Understanding abnormals and minuses was just the warm-up, Madaka was the final boss. He wanted to stay by her side, but to do that he had to first knock her off her pedestal. A normal and a god can never be together, but two normal teenage students sure can, and that's what she really is. She is just a human. And so to prove that, he beats her in the student council election. By beating her he proved that she won't always win, that she isn't loved by all, that she can lose. And by using his skill, devil style, he made the victory absolute. He nullified any flukes of luck that a protagonist would be afforded. He made his victory undisputable and Madaka's loss an absolute fact. He did something she could not. He won the election that she lost. But it's not about Zenkichi rising to a position where he is worthy of her love. Instead it's about showing her that they were always the same, that he had always been worthy of standing by her side since they were both nothing more than childhood friends. But besides all this, there was another motive, another reason why he had to beat her, because he saw how much she suffered. He had the ability of empathy, the ability to see what others couldn't even see for themselves. He knocked her down to earth to save her. She wasn't born to help others, she was born to live. He freed her from the shackles of being a saviour to strangers. He no longer wanted her to devote everything to others. He had a responsibility to free her from her role as student council president, since he was the one to put her on that path to begin with. To put the whole school's problems onto the shoulders of one teenage girl is just cruel, and Zenkichi might have been the only one to understand that, as he was the only one to see past the simulated reality Madaka projected. Just look at how the students react in this scene.
両手に鍵爪装着したスパイクの女子がママチャリで時速80キロ出してたぞ。ありゃきっと生徒会長だ。何？生徒会長だって？なら普通だね。
That's not a normal way to think, and for a time Zenkichi too was pulled in, but through his trials and tribulations he saw the truth and so crushed Madaka, because he loved her and he wanted her to be happy. Once becoming the student council president, Zenkichi basically became the main character of the series, at least for most of the Jet Black wedding arc. And this is narratively genius. As well, what's the point of the election arc? To show Madaka that she isn't a main character, that she is just normal, and so hence she stops being the protagonist. And now does Zenkichi prove all this by beating her and showing that even a normal can win and be the protagonist, and hence he becomes the story's protagonist. By acting as the main character, despite being a normal, he hammers home the idea that anyone can be the main character, or in other words, that no one is a main character. We are all just people. Something hammered even further home by the fact that one to finally defeat Ahiko, the closest thing the series has to a final antagonist, is Zenkichi. And how does he do this? By trusting in his friends. He took a punch that would leave unrepairable damage even when he could have dodged it, for no other reason that he trusted Shiranui. His friend would come through for him. It was his trust in his friend that gave him victory over Ahiko. It was the good old power of friendship. Now the significance of Zenkichi defeating Ahiko plays more into Madaka's own arc, which I explain in her dedicated analysis, but also still holds a lot of importance to Zenkichi's arc. One of the big themes of Medaka Box, especially in the later arc, is communication. Madaka was unable to communicate her feelings, so felt isolated from humanity. The style users literally use communication to fight, via the styles, and so on. And well, as I've been saying a lot in this video, Zenkichi is a master of understanding others' feelings, the kind of feelings they are unable to communicate to others. Ahiko though is a little bit different. It's not that he can't communicate his true feelings, but that others can't communicate to him. He's unable to accept the reality that time has passed on, and so is stuck in the past. Yet it is something that he has to learn. So of course the master of empathy has to become the master of communication as well. Styles are methods of communication. After all, they are designed to communicate. Zenkichi then, even if he is using an echo of someone else's style, is the one who brings the idea of a style to its completion. By defeating Ahiko as a normal, he communicates one simple fact, that an unbeatable hero no longer exists. Using a style, he communicates this simple lesson and destroys the image of an ancient hero that Hiko clung to. He did what Madaka could not, as Madaka, even if she had improved, could still not communicate to the extent Zenkichi could, as why should she be able to magically do whatever will win the day? It's not like she's a protagonist or a goddess, she is just a normal girl. But winding back the clock a bit, let's turn to the unknown Shirane arc, and focus on one specific scene, the dream Zenkichi has when in a coma, post Hiko's initial attack. In this dream, he is brought back to the moment he and Shirane became friends. Now knowing she only befriended him to get close to Madaka, he hesitates about whether they were even true friends, whether it mattered. But of course, even knowing all this, he still picks up the eraser and becomes a friend. As Zenkichi loves his friends, possibly more so than any other character in this series. Even though he was being used, he still walked back into Shirane's life, as he can see past stuff like that, and he can accept it. He does not waver even in a dream, as that's just the kind of reliable guy Zenkichi is. He will help out his friends even if they don't ask for it, as he can see what they cannot. For a normal surrounded by so many specials and abnormals, he never feels dissatisfied with who he is. As he says himself, he will never blame his mediocrity on someone who is extraordinary, and that he will never run away from guys who are extraordinary or from his mediocre self. Sure, he strives to self-better himself, but at the end of the day, he is not ashamed to be himself, to just be normal, to be an average guy, as despite that, he still earned the love of Madaka and the friendship of so many others. As he says when the Hiko is defeated, "I'm Hitoyoshi Zenkichi, a high schooler who couldn't live alone for even a second and is as cool as the devil himself." His connections are what gave him the strength to fight, but his connections are not dependent on his mentality or his skills. They are the fruit of his actions as a human and nothing more. In the epilogue arc, we find out that Zenkichi went on to work for the Kurakami family. However, as you'd expect, he started from the bottom and worked his way up. He would achieve his goal with his own efforts and climb up to be worthy of Madaka. As she has grown up, no longer a girl playing hero, but a proper chairman. There is no simulated reality keeping them apart, but a real company structure, so he can't just drag her off her podium, but instead must climb up to meet her. They've all grown up after all into normal old adults. And so, the story ends with Zenkichi fighting Madaka. They fight not as an abnormal and a normal, but as equals, as they are both normal people who understand one another and can communicate with one another. He proved the impossible, that a normal and an abnormal can understand one another and fight as equals. In a way, then his actions throughout the series are what makes the themes of the series come to a thematic conclusion. Firstly, he shows that Madaka is a normal girl, proving that all people, no matter what, are still human. Secondly, he defeats Hiko and saves the day due to the connections he formed throughout the story, proving that connection is what brings real power. And thirdly, by understanding and communicating with Hiko, someone who is more monster than man, he proves that understanding others and communicating to them is one of the greatest gifts we as humans possess, as it's what separates us from monsters and beasts. He is weaker than everyone else throughout the entire story. He is an underdog in a world of monsters and gods, yet still he pushes through, and this is what makes him such a brilliantly nuanced deconstruction of the underdog protagonist. Normally an underdog protagonist starts off weak and through trial and struggle grows to be strong enough to stand atop all the others who before had eclipsed them. But Zenkichi flips this concept on its head. He doesn't get stronger than everyone else, he instead shows that everyone is equal. He doesn't bring himself up to the same level as others, and he doesn't bring them down to his level. No, he simply shows that there never was any difference in their standings to begin with. He never was an underdog, and they never were overdogs. He was just a dog. And this is why Zenkichi is so key to Medaka Box as a story, as he embodies the core philosophy of the series. He sees everyone as equal and shows that even a normal can become the main character. He proves that roles are rubbish and that connection conquers all. He tears down the notion of a main character and simply says that being human is enough. You don't need to suffer alone as a pillar of hope, you can just be the same as everybody else. Comment of the week comes from ThrowdownN64. Thank you so much, and yes, I could make them longer, but considering this video is taking like a month to come out, I don't think making the videos any longer is really going to be good for anyone. If you're interested in my literary endeavours, then why not check out my books Gang, Fluid Justice and People of Fate Volume 1, available at Amazon.com. And if you want to go the extra mile in supporting this channel, then consider pledging to my Patreon, where for as little as £2.75 a month, you can get your name at the end of the video, like Hikari Desu, 7SO, Smokey McBobby, Rinjack9696 and Dewey. So with all that said and done, I've been Seth the Sin, the Deadly Sin of Geek, and I'm signing out. Stay safe, everyone.